going to talk about three films that are essentially what I would say are viewed as the grown-up films for adults, for intelligent people, which is Wake Up Dead Man, the new Knives Out film, A Real Pain, and Eddington. Now, these are films that they're in the category of these are what grown-ups watch. This is for the intelligent people. This is entertainment for people who know better than the average scum. Essentially, you get them round from like September to like December, and then from the rest of the time you get mainly what they're viewed as for teenagers. So, A Real Pain came out last year. Eddington was one of the few like grown-up ones apparently for people during the summer, and Knives Out comes out now. Now, I've seen all of them recently, and I'm throwing them all together because you have one that actually is intelligent. You've got one that is a good entertainment, but let's not go crazy about it. And there's one that tries to be intelligent and absolutely fails. So you've got three different variations, and that kind of covers roughly what you normally get, because there aren't actually that many intelligent films out. Not very often. Usually you get one or two, and you get a lot of wannabes who are looking for that Oscar, who sometimes get good reviews, but then you try and watch them later and you go, what the hell is this? This is just nonsense. There's a problem with cinema is that what people view of intelligence has to be within a certain category. So it's only the intelligence of what is viewed as responsible in that era. And if you look at any era in the past, there's always massive blind spots, which is represented in the films. So the blind spots become something that is expressed in a lot of these so-called grown-up films, especially in the kind of Western world where we try and pride ourselves on being very responsible. You're probably a much better chance of getting intelligent films from other countries who are not trying to be respectable, they're just making films. And if they treat their audience with respect, you'll get there. Really. So The Real Pain is the one from last year, and it actually is a genuinely good film. It's much better than actually what it looks like in trailers. When it looks in trailers, it looks very gimmicky. It's two cousins who are going to doing a tourism experience in Poland, where you go and you see the death camps and you see the various Jewish areas in Poland. And it's something people do, and something Jesse Eisenberg saw. So he was already writing a script about two cousins were very different from each other, and he couldn't get it going until he found this idea, and he mixed these two ideas together to create A Real Pain, which is a look at if you're a descendant of one of these like cultures that went through hell, which the Jewish culture went through in the 1940s and the 1930s under Hitler, and there's been like generations even before that in Europe, and thousands of years gone back. I mean, it's a Jewish story basically, but they live in America. Him and Kieran Culkin play characters who live in America and have it kind of easy. I mean, they still have to do jobs. I mean, Eisenberg's playing a guy who does sales advertising on websites, which does not sound like a fun job. And Culkin is a character who jumps around, and he seems to be at the end of his tether. He just doesn't seem to know where he's fitting in life. And he is very spontaneous, and there's a suspicion he does have mental problems. And are not quite been faced with the family, people are just avoiding him. Feel like, we don't know how to deal with this. So they both go sort of way to try and attach themselves again to this cousin of his. Eisenberg invites him to this tourism tour to find the house where their grand grew up, and they both love their grand, but Culkin's character was a favourite. And they're going to use a time to bond with each other. And you have, like, Eisenberg's character who is very kind of straight-laced and stressed out, and he's a character that no one particularly likes. He's very much, he's got a schedule, he's got a way of life, but everyone else in the tour is just there, really. They like the cousin. The cousin's much more anarchic, and Culkin plays him with a lot of energy. But he's also someone who's socially, he can point stuff out, but probably in a way that's awkward for people. But he does actually have intelligent views and things. But he's also ruled by his emotions, and he will make your life difficult if you're around him for too long. And Culkin's dealt with him for years, and he's now no longer sure how to deal with him. And there was some stuff in the past that have coloured their relationship a little bit. So that's basically the story, is them going through this tour with a tour guide who is infatuated with the Jewish experience, but he's British and he's emotionally distanced from it in some way. And he's just giving a lot of facts, and it's about the different types of people take this tour. Like, one's a divorcee, and she's trying to make sense of her life. You have a couple who are here to see the past. Finally, you have a man who came from war in Africa, and he's actually turned to Judaism because he likes the religion, and he found a lot of help when he moved over to Canada from people of the Jewish faith, and he found the religion fascinating. So you have a variety of people there for different reasons. He's trying to find the kind of horrors of his faith, or the faith he's chosen to escape his own horrors, so he's going there for that. So it becomes this story of all these different people they're only going to see for a couple of days, and then they'll never see it again. And it's very interesting because it is a comedy. You do have some funny stuff. Culkin has a lot of funny bits in it, and Eisenberg's kind of keeping it grounded. But it retains its intelligence, because hearing this description, you can see the horrific film this could have been. This is a kind of film that could have been off the rails and very sentimental, and doesn't do it. So one of the reasons why I bring this up is, this is how you do something right. It brings up the idea of how does people look at the faith of their forefathers, and how do they relate to that? How do they look at the trauma of their forefathers, and how do they relate to that when they feel they're pampered, but they're also have their own issues, their own difficulties. Both of these men actually have problems in life and psychological issues, and they feel kind of guilty compared to what their grandmother went through, what their parents was basically, the parents had to live with people who were survivors of that horror. So their life feels very easy, even though they've got some real problems of their own. But how does that kind of set of problems compare to that? How do you actually look at that, and how do you deal with it in an intelligent way? And the film was smart enough to know there are no answers. It's how do you deal with it yourself? And even there, you can't articulate to yourself. All you can do is look at things you see are, this is how I can react to this, and that's all I can do. I can't really deal with it in a clean way. It's just something you're just going to try and live with and deal with slowly over time. So the film's very intelligent about that, and actually it can offer you great solutions. It can offer you these characters and how they react, and doing that intelligently and tastefully. So that's why this film actually works really well, is because it understands the limitations, that this is basically the equivalent of a short story about a trip to Auschwitz. Or it's a different one, but it's a trip to one of the death camps. It's almost like a short story level narrative where you get a lot of things happening, and that's it. And that's enough. It's just like, it understands exactly what it is, exactly what it's doing. It's 90 minutes long. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It understands what its points are. And it's like, this is a great example of what you do with this kind of subject. It's what a lot of like more European directors tend to do with subjects. Is like understand the limitations of what the form is and what your story you're telling is, and try and work with that and work with what you shouldn't do in these kind of movies that would actually make it offensive. Is what don't you do and what do you do, and how do you maximize the interest in things but don't push it too far. So this is a modest film but really well done, and it's like the good side of grown up entertainment for the Western world. It's like you wish more films would be this way and actually would be like, oh yeah, let's not insult people watching this film. It's that kind of delightful thing that happens sometimes. The one in the middle, I would say, is Knives Out film, Wake Up Dead Man, in the sense of it's a really well put together film. I really enjoyed it. I like all the Knives Out films. This one deals with a church where you've got a Monsignor played by Josh Brolin, who is a bit of a tyrant, and the whodunit element is he's been killed by one of his parishioners, but no one's sure who, and the priest who was his second in command, who he didn't like, has been framed for the murder, and Daniel Craig comes in as Benoit Blanc to try and find out what happened, and he's also very aware that this young priest is very unlikely to have done it. He's just not in his character really for this kind of thing. He's got his problems, but he's not this. So he's trying to work it out. And he's also trying to deal with the fact that he's got his own problems with organised religion. And you also get an idea of what people need religion for within the church. There's various different things they need it for, whether it can be selfish reasons, selfless reasons. But there's a lot of the broken people who are using religion for either healing themselves, like psychologically or even physically, or it's a way to escape from the world or escape from their own problems. So it's a look at the downsides of religions and the upside of how does this help some people and how does this help some people get through life. So it's a complicated film in that way, but it's also an entertainment. It's saying here's some ideas about religion you might think about, but also we're doing a whodunit, and it works really well because again, like a real pain, understands the limits of its genre and what it is. But it is kind of weird that this film is probably one of the more intelligent films we're getting in the last few months, and it's like, you know, there are films I've yet to see that come out are in that kind of camp of great reviews, but most of the ones that I've seen who have got ideas tend to be kind of a lot more pretentious and a lot more self-involved, and I'll get to one of those. But it is a kind of telling that it's like this is a kind of the way into having lots of ideas that just use a genre. The way a lot of times science fiction is used in that way, and the way like you can use like somebody's a comedy to be satirical, or a horror movie to have some social commentary, in a way that they can get away with this in a way that um like a drama can actually just go overboard and be dull and be worthy, but not actually deal with what the tensions in real life. And this genre film can cover something about faith and what is good faith and what is bad faith in a way that's I found far more interesting than The Conclave last year. The Conclave was one of those big movies from last year that was meant to be important, meant to be intelligent, and it turned out just to be a gimmick. And it's like, why is this whodunit about a local church far more interesting than The Conclave? But The Conclave was meant to be intelligent and meant to be timely, and it was like, that was just stupid. And this one actually looks at the problems that people have, the problems that um, a lot of parishes face of like low attendance and people are disconnected from the world, and people are disbelieving because people understand science a lot more now. And it's like, what is not the logic of it, what is the social community element of church actually hold for people, and how can it help them? And how can it help them avoid going down dark paths? And the film also looks at what kind of wrong type of minister do to people if someone like the Josh Brolin character is doing it for their own good and he's not caring about the needs of the people. And it becomes more and more about that, what's good and bad within a fun romp of a murder mystery. It's a good murder mystery. A lot of murder mysteries I find to be pretty dull, but this one actually worked. It had fun with its premise. It didn't treat you as if you were stupid. You know, it was like when something felt a bit absurd, you had characters noticing it felt a bit absurd. It's like, have we been played here? And they're questioning it. But doesn't do it in a cynical way, so it keeps it to the sense of, we respect your intelligence and let's talk about this in a kind of quiet way. And again, this is what a good like mainstream entertainment should be. And most of the time, what you get is just like explosions and things thrown at you, and lots and lots of just a rush of imagery that doesn't really attach itself to many ideas. So again, it's like this is for grown-ups, but there's not many like this, and it's like I do feel we're being underserved. I mean, even TV, like they say all the Netflix dramas and stuff, but a lot of them are really nothing to them. Are just there to keep you amused. They're not there to actually make you think. They're there to actually block you from thinking. And speaking of which, let's go to Eddington. Eddington is the prime example of this kind of movie that is meant to be for grown-ups, but it forgot to actually have intelligence. And it's really an annoying film because it has, I mean, all three of these films have a good cast. I mean, Wake Up Dead Man had a great cast. Eddington has a great cast, and they're there for nothing. And they've all tried. The problem with Eddington is not the actor's fault. They all put the work in. Joaquin Phoenix is terrific in a lead, and he's really putting the work in, even though it's not worth it. Emma Stone turns up as playing his wife, and she's puts effort in. Austin Butler shows up for a couple of scenes, and he's having fun. A lot of the other Pedro Pascal shows up for the 50th film this year, and he's good. And it's funny because you watch him and he's in it for a short time, you know, but it's spread out amongst throughout the film. But you can tell he was there for a short time. But the funny thing is, I saw a film he was in. It was also released this year called Freaky Tales, which is also, he's in it for a short time. And it's also a genre film which has some social commentary about skinheads and fascist police and things, and it's a much better film, and because it doesn't take itself so seriously on the surface and allows itself to be silly, and it does a lot more with what it's got. But Eddington's just annoying. Eddington is basically, it should have been an hour 20 film. It should have been a film from like the 1950s. It was a B part of the movie where you have a corrupt sheriff who doesn't know he's corrupt, and it's a matter of him messing his life up and realising his own flaws and getting into politics and getting to people who are better than him, wiser than him, and smarter than him. It should be a film noir. Instead, it's a 2.5 hour bloated mess where you have lots of very obvious social satire. Satire is so obvious it acts as if it's trying to make natural born killers feel intelligent. That's how annoying it is. It talks about COVID and all that stuff. It talks about social media. It does everything. And John Waters loved this film because he said it was annoying and irritating just the way life is at the moment. But I don't think there's better movies that explain that. This one just dragged on. It just kept going. And the annoying thing was, it started out as an okay satire about our modern lives. It wasn't like terrible. It was like, okay, I've seen, it's not Paul Verhoeven level of satire, you know. It's not like top level, but it gets by showing you the kind of absurdities of the COVID lockdown and absurdities of small town politics. How everyone thinks they're a genius about stuff and they're really not, and how petty grudges can just spiral in a local community as everyone thinks they're the most important person. All of that is good, but the big problem even here is that's the first hour and a bit of the film, and by the time you get to the second half of the film, the film should have been over. But every scene you've got, the camera moves slowly, the actors talk slowly. They make sure you get the point, and you get the point again and again and again and again. So what should be a simple scene, every scene that should be like a minute long takes 4. Every scene that should be, um, you know, a basic setup stretches and stretches and stretches, and it's like they can't cut any of the actor stuff, even though they can have made the point by gesture. And instead, you get a speech, and that goes on and on and on. There's an investigation halfway through, and someone dies. That is in plot level is the most basic stuff. Is the most basic stuff in the movie, and it goes on forever, and it stretches out, as if to stretch out the tension. But you kind of know who did it, and you know what the problems are, and you know what the difficulties are within the situation, and they're trying to set up this is going to be really tense, and it's like, but it's not, because it's taking too long. Because it's taken so long to get there that you're kind of like, I don't care about these people anymore. If I cared in any way, this would be tense, but it's not, and it goes on forever. And it's like, if you want to watch a suspense movie, this is Ari Aster who's done horror movies. You're like, this is going on too long. And then at a certain point, the plot just collapses into just paranoia. Like, the lead character's gone paranoid, and there's people out to get him, and you don't explain who they are and what they are, but it's meant to be something really, really complicated, but it's not really set up very well, and it just becomes this vague sense of this guy spinning out of control. But again, it's going on forever, and things are just happening, and you're like, why did that happen? I don't know. I don't actually care. Why? Well, it's pretty short, but who cares? That's just going on and on this way, and it's like it goes further and further into, you know, just basic depression level narrative, because you're just depressed watching it. It's so boring and so like unstructured. And Austin Butler comes in, and he's good, but he's playing a character you don't need in the film. And I was reminded watching this film was like, man, Caught Stealing was so much better than this. And Caught Stealing was a spiral out of control movie, but a much better version of that. It was actually like, oh, this is actually what's tense. This was what you do with a spiraling out of control movie. That's when it's like, it's what you don't do. It's just like things happen. And even Emma Stone's character is, there's a point to have been there, but again, her scenes are stretched out so long. It's like, what's the point? You know, like I figured out what the twist is in this story, like fairly early on, but it takes another hour to get there, hour and a half to get there, and it's like, I'm hating this at that point. And in the finale, where Phoenix goes mad with some guns and things, it should be something interesting happening. Instead, it's just like, I just, someone shoot him, someone please shoot him. This is like the worst version of First Blood, where the cop's gone crazy and he's running through a town with lots of weapons, and someone just shoot him. Please put us out of misery. This is not interesting. And it's just goes on and on with just boring stuff. And there's a corporate satire thing going on that smacks of like 70s movies, but not like parallax view. This is like future world where the metaphor's really obvious and it's like there's no nuance to it. It's that kind of level of satire going on here. It's just like, yeah, you think I'm stupid for actually thinking this is interesting. You know, that's what they're getting at, is they think you're stupid if you think it's interesting. They think you're really dumb if you think this film has any brain power. So the film just stretches out. It has the ironic ending as well. That it's just not ironic at all. And it's just like a complete mess. It's a total mess. And I try to point out racism and hypocrisy in politics and things, but it's so obviously done, and every beat is so played and further played to you. You're sick of it. Your characters are over-explained repeatedly, and it's like it's like what you don't do if you think your audience is adult. You're meant to treat them with respect if they're adult. You're meant to imply things and let them figure the rest out themselves. Instead, this one just states everything, and it's just painful to watch. This is just like oh, that's horrible. It's just so horrible. It's almost dramatic to think about, especially when I really liked the other two films. But just told me this one is just so depressing. So stop. But do not watch Eddington. Eddington's terrible. Eddington's really self-indulgent, just trash. Because it just thinks it's smart and it's not. So, yeah, sorry to be so negative with the last one, but it really annoyed me, obviously. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back with some more soon, but I've one more to go, and then I've got the films of the year thing, and that's it. Take a guess what won't be on it. Well, I'll see you all later. Bye.